Hi. On my return from the inspection of regional center of CES at Kochi, I, in a note, detailed the going-ons in the areas of research at the regional center. I pointed out under various points in a bulleted list what were the themes I focused my attention on. Like, for example, the research activities, the coastal laboratories and their progress, and the what is called breaker measuring or breaker height and frequency measuring electronic system under building in an agency by Mr. Shivadas, who is originally actually attached to the SIFT in the Vizhinjam Island, and then about the individuals of activities of these scientists bees, like and also the chemical laboratory and its progress. So one of the items at the note I included was the advantage to the overall research activities of the CES if one young man, Mr. A.S.K. Nair, a trained geophysicist, instead of being attached to what is called a physical oceanography group, had been put in the Trivandrum lab of the CES, then the benefit of the skills of this young man will be of better use and better exploited in the research programs that will be on stream in the headquarters office of CES. And in fact, what I did, I gave the note and then I had a verbal explanation of my views and my data that I collected about the regional center. Overall, I made a last point that as far as I see it, the regional center is striving hard to attain their goals for the year under question. So, director read through this signed, read through is in the sense, just looked over it and initialed it, and of course, set aside for the office to act upon. And so happened that the point of shifting this Nair to geophysicist over to Trivandrum was also underlined or highlighted by the director. And it so happened that the administration had taken steps to transfer this man to Trivandrum office, I was told later by a different source. Well, one other thing that happened in the course of the remainder of what is called my 1980 second half was by about December, there was a visitor to the director's office, and I was not really informed about the visitor or who he was, etc. However, I was one of those staffers in the institution who used to be in the office seat before 8:45 for my own personal reasons, because I start off my day much earlier than the rest of the people. And the director himself is the first person in most of the days to come into the office, because his nature is like that. By about 8 o'clock he will start off, and by 8:30 or close to 8:30 he will be in the director's office. Most of the days when I am there, either he will just walk around the hall, the ground floor of the building, and if my fan is rotating, and then he will stop over my office. I will stand up and say, "Good morning, sir." He will nod and then walk up to his office. So one thing that happened, like for example, a visitor. This visitor is Mr. Vizhinjam, who was a superintending engineer in the harbour division of the government of Kerala. They had a prestigious project. Later on I understood, at the Vizhinjam area, which is called the Vizhinjam Fishing Harbour. Government had, through the Government of India's funds, sunk a huge crores in the project, but the so-called fishing harbour was dysfunctional because of the extreme levels of sedimentation happening in the mooring area of the harbour. Vizhinjam is famous because it's an area of the sea where the waters closer to the shore are very deep. That is how modern days the Adani deep water port has also come here, to the south of the fishing harbour. Anyway, so on that particular day, specific day, by about 11 o'clock, I was called in. I was asked to go to the director's office by the secretary of the director. Of course, as usual, I took my diary and a pen and then walked up to the director's office, and I showed up at his door. He asked me to go over and take a seat. I found a well-nourished, medium-built, dark complexioned, extremely white, pure white dressed man in his, maybe 40s or early 50s, and Mr. Thambi, the technical secretary, seated there. I sat down there, and the director told me, "Vicky, meet Mr. Vizhinjam, who is engineer in charge of the harbour engineering division for the government of Kerala." And then I wished Mr. Vizhinjam and introduced. I was already introduced by Karnagaran sir, the director. Then a discussion was initiated by Karnagaran sir, and the sir asked me, this gentleman, their department has a problem, and he is approaching us whether CES can solve the problem. And then, of course, some hint about the problem was told to me, and then I said, "Sir, no problem, and provided we have enough funds and some infrastructure extra, then we can give this harbour engineering division the answer for the questions that is pestering them." So then Karnagaran sir told me, "Why don't you take Mr. Vizhinjam along and have a discussion at depth, and then come back to see me." So Vizhinjam and I just walked out of the office and found not an empty room, a room where we could be seated comfortably in the third floor itself, where we could discuss. And then I said, "No, as far as I am concerned, if the questions that you want answers for, those that you posed, then CES will definitely be able to provide answers for those questions." And we sat down there. Then he told me that, I know you, I have seen you innumerable times. Yeah, because those days, and I was, a early morning jogger from my home in Shastamangalam to museum and so on and so forth. At least 1 hour I used to jog. And either on my way out to museum, Thrivikramji museum, or on my way back, this man will cross me in the sidewalk because he also will be on what is called a morning walk. And then with all those nice comments and appreciations, we walked back to director's office and told the director that yes, I have understood what their problem is. I have told them what by way of solutions us can do, and then of course we have to work out the financials and etc. etc. And of course then director asked me, or rather both of us, are you will be happy to be associated with such in this work? He said, absolutely no problem, because this head MSD has given me an assurance that they will be able to get the answers for our sedimentation question and the direction of streaming in of the sediments, etc. So then director asked, what is the next step? Then Vijayan said, what we needed is, we need a detailed research proposal with the financial part and the deliverables on it. And then director asked me, can you give it day after tomorrow? I said, no. I need at least 7 working days. Then Vijayan said, there is only one condition now. That was somewhere around the last week of, or toward the last week of December 1980. He needed a proposal ready in all respects before the end of the first week of January, so that it can be examined by their team, and then included the budget provision for the department budget for the year 1981-82. That is what he answered. And I said, absolutely no problem, sir. I need 7 days because I have to discuss with my group, and then we have to do something which is immaculate and which is also actually scientifically well-founded. That is the only reason. There is the 7 working days is the maximum number of days I need to do this work. So, well, right there we parted. When I came down to my seat and told my friends, like Abhi Varghese, then Cherry Machado, and who is this? That poor man died at a very young age, Vasudevan. That this is what happened. And we are going to do the work. I am going to chalk out a plan of research. But among these, Mr. Abhi Varghese was some kind of a doubtful person about whether we can do it, whether it will be possible for us to discharge their requests and scientific proof, etc., etc. Then I said, don't worry about that part. Okay. Then Cherry Machado was kind of really excited about this because he is a man who loves to work in the sea. So he said, sir, we can do that. Vasudevan also supported Cherry. And then I went home for lunch because, those days the office of SES was right in Shastamangalam, opposite of the school, high school, and my home is only within 2 or 3 minutes of walking distance. I went for a lunch and finished lunch and came back and again reassembled with the staff, scientific staff, and we started preparing what is called a draft, some kind of, there is a methodology for making a research proposal, and there is a style also for the presentation, etc., etc. So these things were slowly evolving, and within the 3rd day it was all done. I prepared a draft and submitted to Karnagaran sir for his reading and approval. And of course, naturally, being the director, he will only skim through this content and then what he does is he will give it to someone else in the organization, and this time I'm not sure whether whether this report write-up went to Sinnarai, but I am very sure that there is absolutely no doubt that Sinnarai would have read it. And of course, P.K. Thambi is another kingpin in this organization, because he is the go-between the director and the rest of the staff. You know what happens, like a principal secretary of of course, he is not designated as the principal secretary. Thambi is designated as the executive secretary. So Thambi has a big say. However, one thing I gathered was everybody approved it, the approach. And then, of course, that is just because I got all these ideas or the points in black and white, as it is conventionally said, because of the academic exposure I had in Syracuse. Not only in Syracuse and in the classrooms and discussion, but the reading I had done. The reading was extensive, unparalleled in my whole career. The 4.5 years I was in Syracuse with the Hero Geology Lab, I have read extensively the literature. Unfortunately, the literature is available in plenty, unlike any institute in India. No institute in the country can be equated with respect to availability of reading and availability of literature, like you might get in a university in the United States, like Syracuse University. By the way, Syracuse University is a member of the so-called Ivy League. Okay. Then, of course, in the next day, after 24 hours also, I got another, prompt to go see the director, and the director had initialed the proposal and asked me to finalize it and then make it ready to go to the harbour engineering office, etc., etc. So it was, we had an excellent scenographer in our division, Mr. Gopi. Mr. Gopi is a very humble, very efficient, and very cooperative man with all the works that we in MSD do. He thinks he is part of the scientific team. That is the advantage. He is involved in the activities as if a scientist would be involved. Gopi is very good in typing, and though he is only a SSLC by those days, school leaving certificate holder, there is no question of going wrong in spelling, because he always consults a dictionary at any point in time of doubt. So that was done. That was actually, then again I submitted it to the director, and the director asked me to go take it to Sinnarai, and Sinnarai said, I don't want to see it through Thrivikramji, you have done it. Why should I waste my time in rereading? Then I said, this is what director said. Well, all right, I will go through it, and I will let you know. And within an hour, he walked down from his third floor office to my first ground floor office, and then handed over to me and congratulated me for this effort, because this project, if funded, will be the first ever project funded by an external agency in the state for the purposes of research. And this is a translational research, without doubt. This was a translational research. The findings will be implemented. Well, then of course, the so-called process of, making multiple copies were done by director's office itself. And, we had submitted 3 copies to the harbour engineering, and other 3 copies stayed in the office, 1 copy with the director's cell, and another with the administration, and the third with the MSD itself. So then what else happened? Well, by way of, that was actually well received in the harbour engineering department, and they acknowledged with thanks the proposal, and they also wrote added a line saying that this will be included in their budget for the year 1981-82, and by early 1981 financial year, they will be able to provide us the fund. The project was at a cost of 3.75 lakhs for 2 years, because 1 year you can do the what is called the research, and the second year you will have to refine your thought and refine, if necessary, some of the procedures, and redo it if there is a need, and then make the final report and the recommendations to the sponsoring agency. So that was what we proposed, and that was what was accepted. In other words, when we say 2 years of duration, it means 2 years is the maximum, the ceiling. So that is how the first research project sponsored by outside agency arrived in this CES, and also in the Marine Sciences Department, Marine Sciences Division. Well, that is what happened, toward the end of 1980, second half. It was not very bad at all. Thank you.